Good morning and welcome to our side event presentation. I'm very excited to be welcoming you all here, and I would like to begin with a brief land acknowledgement. CICAN acknowledges that our offices located in Ottawa, Canada are on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. Next slide, please. I'm really pleased to welcome you all to our side event with my colleagues from around the world, representing the Sustainable Development Goals Affinity group that we launched together under the leadership of Colleges and Institutes Canada and the umbrella of the World Federation of Colleges and Polytechnics. Next slide, please. The SDG Affinity Group was launched just over a year ago now, and we are co-led by Colleges and Institutes Canada and the other people who will be joining us in the presentation this morning. The goal of our group was to advance the awareness and adoption of the SDGs as a critical part of technical and vocational education and training. So in other words, for colleges, institutes, polytechnics, and cégeps in Canada, and colleges and polytechnics around the world. And our objective was really to share best practices, emerging best practices with respect to the SDGs in our post-secondary education institutions. Next slide, please. Colleges and Institutes Canada, where I work as manager of impact partnerships, took the lead in launching this group, and we were joined by people from the UNESCO-UNEVOC Center headquarters in Germany, as well as colleagues from Australia, Chile, and Kenya. And Colleges and Institutes Canada is a national association, next slide please, here in Canada, that represents, back to the previous slide. And we represent over 140 technical vocational training institutions across Canada. And we would like to invite you during this webinar to use the chat box if you have questions, or the Q&A as well. We'll be happy to answer your questions at the end of our presentation if we have time. We do have many speakers and many video clips to share with you of our journey over the last year and the many webinars that we've offered. And today we are going to start with a presentation from my colleague Andre in Chile. So Andre, I'm going to let you take over.
Excellent. Thank you, Judy. And thank you all of you for being here. So I would like to thank to this conference, Together Ensemble, to have allowed us to present some of our journey and mostly the key messages that we got from different presenters we had during our last year as a group. So merci beaucoup pour nous avoir invités à ce congrès de Together Ensemble. C'est magnifique de pouvoir parler avec vous tous les bons moments qu'on a eu dans ce groupe. So first, what I would like to share is part of the key messages that we got from the inaugural meeting that we have with Charles Hopkins. Here you can have, well, the link if you want to go deeper in all the messages that Charles provide us. So you can click and you can go. And next slide, please. Well, very quick, what is INACAP? INACAP, where I work, is a higher institution in Chile. And where we offer 2-year vocational programs and 4-year professional programs. And we're in Chile since 1966. We have 28 campuses along Chile, north to south, one that is really, really north around the desert, and one that is really, really close to the Antarctica in Punta Arenas. So we have many, many campuses and with different cultures and territories. So we have more than 100,000 undergrad students, and what we do is, well, we teach and we prepare our students to be ready for work. So this is what moved, and this is what we're doing. Next slide, please. So the person that I would like to talk about is Charles Hopkins. Well, Charles gave us the inaugural talk in our inaugural meeting. So we have the the chance to have him in our as a presenter. Well, Charles is very well known as an expert in education for sustainable development, and he has many different places, and he works in many different places. So we really appreciate that Charles took him time to talk to us. So thank you, Charles, for all what you gave. Next one, please. So one of the key messages from Charles, first, he mentioned that TVET institution and must be involved and must be engaged in the whole sustainable development movement. He sees, the TVET institution, like the one I work, the one that where Judy worked, where Jane and many attendees that they're here in this talk. Well, we have to understand that we are a key part of the sustainable development movement. That is not happening very often, at least in my country. And what we are called to do is to really engage in this movement, to make it bigger and to make it more silent, and where many people is aware about what is going on here, especially young people. Next one, please. Also, he says, and that was very direct, partnership. Even though we have an SDG number 17 that talks about partnership, but partnership from Charles' perspective, and I agree, is something critical. And we have to understand that by doing ourselves or working alone, it's not going to happen to move what is happening with the sustainable development movement around the world. So what we're doing here as a group is part of this partnership. We're promoting partnership, and we're promoting that we work together to allow those SDGs to be more silent, and also the role of engaging education. So since what has happened with this strategy since 1945, now in 2015, where we had the Sustainable Development Goals launched, the role of our education as a TVET institution took a real critical place in this new strategy. Next one, please. Now, also Charles made us a call, and he said that, we as a group, and not only us, but many people that they're engaged and they want to work around SDGs, they have to understand that we all have a particular role. And now what we're doing as a group, we're promoting global partnership. In all the last year, we had many people participating in our webinars from all around the world, mainly from Canada, from Australia, Chile, and also Africa and Europe. So the more we talk about, the more salient is going to be SDGs, especially in the education sector. So promoting global partnership, is part of our role as a group, and that's what we are doing. Next one, please. He also put and mentioned more than the TVET of being engaged, he sees that education is a key factor, is the glue factor for many of the SDGs. So when we think about curriculum, and when we think about, the strategies of education, when we think about how we promote our students to engage in SDGs, we're making and we're acting as the glue to link most of the different SDGs in all the different phases that our students have during the whole educational process that we're providing them. So education, again, is not only the SDGs number 4, which is about education, but we have to understand that we have to go deeper in all the SDGs. The next one, please. And that's very quick. I have two more slides, but also Charles mentioned that we have to be more to go deeper in what we want to do in in this new education. And there is a room for futures of education initiative, where we as a group and you as players of, around SDGs, well, we have to take actions, and we have to be involved and putting together, well, ideas to propose how the future of education is going to be or has to be. Next one, please. And this is the last one. And well, UNESCO has a 10-year programs where they're trying to transform the education. There is a document that is Education for Sustainable Development. You have the link. I recommend strongly to read and to go through this document, and where you can see, well, all the different 5 priority actions areas of this document, where we as TVET institution, we can make a lot of differences. So thank you.
Thanks, Andre. So, and I just wanted to note that I did put in the chat box the link to the registration page for this SDG Affinity group. It's open to all of you, and we encourage you all to register, and then you'll get invitations to all of our events, which happen every few months, and always with interesting speakers from around the world. So I'd like to just speak a little bit then about 2 other webinars that we hosted, but first a few more words about Colleges and Institutes Canada. We represent the Canadian college and institute sector. As I mentioned, we have over 140 member institutions, and we're very proud of the fact that 95% of Canadians live within 50 kilometers of one of our campuses, and 86% of Indigenous peoples also live within 50 kilometers. So we have a broad reach across Canada. Next slide, please. And we are also proud to say that since 2012, we have been a UNESCO-UNEVOC Center. In fact, we are the lead for North America, and as such, we coordinate activities amongst individual UNEVOC centers, of which there are 3 in Canada and a number of others in North America. And again, this is all to support SDG 17 and the partnerships piece. And I'm really excited for you to hear from Ken, one of our colleagues who does work at UNEVOC in Bonn, and we'll be sharing some really exciting information a bit later. Next slide, please. So CICAN, Colleges and Institutes Canada, has embedded the SDGs into our own strategic plan. You can see here a visual of this plan and which SDGs we have chosen. As most of you would, I'm sure, agree that SDG number 4 is our primary mission, and SDG 17 is very important to us as a national association of members. But down at the bottom of the screen, you can see the 4 SDGs that we chose as our priorities. They were our priorities for last year, and they continue to be for this year. And so this is one of the ways that we embed this, as well as having signed the Global SDG Accord. Next slide, please. So now I'm proud to talk about one of the webinars where we had one of our champions in Canada, the Nova Scotia Community College, present their strategy and their vision and the way that they embed the SDGs into their post-secondary institution. And for those who don't know, NSCC is a province-wide institution. So in that province, they are the primary technical and vocational institution, and they have 14 campuses around the province. And in this particular webinar, the president, Don Bureau, did give an impassioned rationale for why they signed the SDG Accord and why they are championing it. And then they brought 5 of their senior staff to speak to our group about how they're doing this. And so I do have a short clip that we want to show you from Michael Chapman, who is their manager of infrastructure and their SDG lead in that institution, to understand. But the entire webinar will be available to you. We will be sharing the links to all 9 of the webinars, and you'll be able to go and view any of the ones that you wish to view. So Andrea, can we show the clip?
The next step for NSCC, of course, you know, Don signed the SDG Accord. So what that means for us, I mean, first of all, you know, it's a formal commitment to really embed those SDGs into what we do. And it's not intended to drastically change what we're doing in NSC, how we're doing things at the moment, but rather it's to add sort of a universal sort of common lens to our work, to support sort of our decision making, to ensure, as we move forward, that we're really sort of being deliberate about embedding the SDGs into our work. So how do we do this? Like many who have signed the accord, we're on the front end of a fairly steep learning curve. So we're still figuring it out. But what we have done is we've established an SDG steering committee. So we've got leaders, department leaders from across the college on this committee to really sort of lean in on the SDGs and figure out how we can embed these goals into our work.
Thank you. So that was just a little taster, but again, we will be sharing the links to all of our webinars so that you can go and hear from all of them. It was a very inspiring presentation from all 5 of those people, and it'll give you a sense of how you can go about embedding the SDGs in your institution. The next slide is about another webinar that we hosted, and this one was in honor of Canada's inaugural Day for Truth and Reconciliation, September the 30th. And so in advance of that, we decided to host a webinar on the role of Indigenous knowledge in reaching the SDGs. And we were really honored to have as our moderator, Elizabeth Stone, who works at one of our colleges at Fleming College. And she was able to share her own perspective on Indigenous knowledge and the SDGs. And then we had a series of excellent speakers from Canada, Australia, and New Zealand to talk about that same issue. So I'd like to show you a small clip again from Liz's introduction.
When I got here, making sure that I don't leave a trace, that I don't harm anything, and that I do everything that I can to support the people of this territory. Some of the work that I've done here to support this territory and to support Anishinaabe or Indigenous people of this land is I've worked advancing and pushing forward the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically SDG 4, and that's making quality education and sustainability. In my work at Fleming College, I'm able to be a part of what's happening here. In the work for the region on SDG 4, I co-chaired that committee, and it was all incorporating Indigenous-led and Indigenous-centered initiatives. I was also blessed to be a part of the UNESCO application to make this area a regional center of excellence.
Thank you very much. I'm now really pleased to pass the microphone on to my colleague, Jane, to talk about some other webinars and her institution in Australia.
Thank you, Judy. Good morning and bonjour à tout le monde. I acknowledge I live, learn and work in Australia on the unceded land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. Although currently I'm in Sun Peaks, British Columbia, Canada, and therefore acknowledge the Adams Lake Indian Band of the Secwepemc Nation as the owners and custodians of this land. I'm currently on sabbatical for 2022 and focusing on learning more about the SDGs. Je remercie together Ensemble nous avoir invités à participer. Vraiment, c'est un très grand plaisir. Thank you. My organisation, TAFE New South Wales, is the state government vocational education and training institution and has provided education for over 130 years for up to 500,000 learners every year, with programmes ranging through certificate, diploma to degree levels. This segment will outline the content of 2 of our sessions, which delve into the world of resources and practitioners. Firstly, our June session on a game, an experiential game, and our November session focusing on social enterprises and achieving the SDGs. Next slide, please. So we had a presentation from Dr. Aya Matsuyama, who is the Possible World Project Director, Global and Incubation Team Captain of IMA-COCO Labo. They have developed an experiential learning resource which started as an in-person, face-to-face game. And at its heart, people learn about the essence of the SDGs within a game format. So over 250,000 people played in 4 years, and the game was also showcased at the United Nations headquarters. Next slide, please. So mainly in response to COVID, an online version called Our World was developed. And we shall continue to see themes of COVID as a driver of the use of technology. Next slide, please. So we have a clip where Aya draws out the key elements of this experiential game. If we could please see that clip.
So those two games, as I said, they're from us, but 2030 SDGs games, people usually give us those comments: transforming our world, expanding awareness. It's a chance to know how much is enough, or balance between economy, environment, and society. And people feel it too can be a starting point because everything is connected. But online version feels like it's starting from this, everything is connected. So it can go beyond geographical distance, break stereotypes, feel cultural differences, and think outside the box. And then, as I mentioned, there are lots of possibilities still there to be uncovered. So these are the two tools that we use for our workshop. So as you can imagine, the important part is to cultivate the possibilities for transforming ourselves and the world. So transforming our world is the key concept of whatever we do. So that aligns with SDGs because the document itself is transforming our world, the 2030 SDGs game, SDGs 2030 sustainable, 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So in that document, SDGs are mentioned. So document title is not the SDGs, it's transforming our world. So this is what we can see now.
So now we turn to our November webinar, Achieving the SDGs, Creating Transformation Through Skills Development and the Social Enterprise Model. And for that webinar, we had 4 speakers. We had Veronica Collendam, who is the founder and CEO of a social enterprise, YCAB. Based in Jakarta, Indonesia, to date, YCAB has brought impact to more than 4.1 million underprivileged youth through education and economic access, including entrepreneurship. And then we also had another social enterprise, the Social Outfit, represented by Kate Clugston, Partnerships and Development Manager. Based in Sydney, Australia, the Social Outfit provides employment and training to people from refugee and new migrant communities in clothing production, retail, design and marketing. And I have had the honour and pleasure of working with both YCAB and the Social Outfit. And in 2016, on a previous sabbatical, I worked as a volunteer in the YCAB Jakarta office. Next slide, please. We also had Kevin Holmes, Managing Director, Social Innovation Lab, Algonquin College, educator and enabler. Based in Ontario, Canada, the Social Innovation Lab provides opportunities for staff and students to better understand the SDGs, whilst at the same time supporting social enterprises working in the community. And Kevin also has Humans of Impact, which collects stories relating to social impact. And we also had a student, Kalissa Hickok, who is also president of Enactus and a member of the Impact Student and Alumni Advisory Committee. Based in Canada, Calissa is due to graduate very soon and takes with her a passion and extensive experience of the social enterprise model. Slide 7, please. Next slide. So when we look at much of the work we've done, and in particular the two examples I've just run through, we saw several themes. So one theme is using the SDGs as a framework to work within and to develop initiatives. So as a framework, we have 2 clips which illustrate the SDGs as a framework. Could we please now hear both those clips talking about SDGs as frameworks?
Yeah, but at least YCAP is addressing 6 SDGs with the no poverty as number 1. And then, of course, the quality education, number 4, gender equality, because we work with women, empowering the economy of the mothers, and definitely that decent work and global partnership to achieve all this. But the
practice, the SDGs are really a really valuable framework, I think, for being able to develop things and to move forward with things. So when we look at creating a project or starting an initiative and we identify a need in the community, you know, one of our first steps is always, okay, which SDGs does this align with? And then being able to use that as sort of ways to really guide how we move forward. Really understand the need, because I think that that's really important. But in my experience also, one of the SDGs that really comes up a lot for myself and for other students that I work with all the time is, of course, quality education. Because when it comes down to it, when you can teach people skills and give them experience, that's going to empower them for the rest of their life. And especially, you know, me as a student about to start my career, being able to learn those skills the way that I have, being able to get all of this experience that I've gotten through being an Enactus and running these community empowerment projects, through being with ISAC and being able to advise on things, that's been super valuable. And
the second theme that we identified is that COVID has accelerated digital technology, amplifying the importance of digital access, literacy and skills. And we have another clip with another of our presenters, if we could please hear that now.
When I was a student,
Yeah, I think it's sort of been most helpful for us when we're talking to partners or corporates that there is this framework around a very quick code, if you will, around, oh yeah, we work on, 8 and 12 and 5 and 10, and then there's that immediate sense of, we're aligned, and there's this kind of purpose and commitment that is bigger than just us and just our companies or organizations working in our own little world, but we're together, and when we do collaborate, we're driving towards those global sustainable development goals. So I think having that broader purpose can be really helpful, and then having that quick language around identifying what problems you're trying to solve, and then you can get to how you're doing that, and where the resource gaps are for each of you, and where you can then collaborate to support one another.
Thank you. We identified a third element, and that is that the digital divide has been further exposed and has grown. And as other speakers have mentioned, please do visit our site where you can hear the full text of these webinars and see everything that people had to say. And the fourth element is collaboration, and we've had many other speakers touch on this, collaboration and partners, So I'd like to finish with a clip from Kevin talking about the importance of partnerships and collaboration.
It's really because they come from the community, they're all over the place. So, but I think mostly if we look at it, we probably work mostly with people who focus on poverty, food, and decent work. That's the sort of the bulk of the groups that we work with, but we work with ones in all different areas. So for us, I guess we're sort of in the partnerships for the goals area the most, because that's really what we do. We partner with organizations and provide support to them.
Right. Thank you very much. I will now pass over to my colleague Ken. Merci à son Ensemble Together for having invited us. Ken, can I please pass to you?
Thank you, Jane. A very good day. From Bonn, Germany. I'm Kenneth Barrientos, Program Officer and Team Leader at UNESCO-UNEVOC. Like the rest of the group, I have the privilege to share with you the key takeaways from one of the sessions we did in April of last year. And we had an excellent input from two program specialists of the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, or UNITAR. Their names, as shown on the slide, Elena and Medina. For those of you who are not familiar, UNITAR is one of the agencies of the UN system providing learning solutions around SDGs. It works with other UN agencies like UNESCO in developing learning resources and services, which I will talk about later. The session we had with UNITAR helped the Affinity group and our participants establish a better understanding of the synergies and the trade-offs when it comes to the different SDGs. It also gave us very concrete ideas what TVET educators and practitioners like us can do to localize the principles and objectives of the SDGs and their targets. Next. From this session, we took away the message that the framers of the SDGs anticipated the degrees of complementarities and synergies that are needed to succeed in achieving the goals. This synergy and linkage can be seen visibly, very visibly, when we look closely at some SDGs. A case in point was with regard to the SDG 9, which is about industry, innovation, and infrastructure, and SDG 7, which is on affordable and clean energy. In the example provided, we learned that countries that are prioritizing to achieve the targets of SDG 9 are almost most likely to contribute positively to achieve some of the targets of SDG 7. In this example I captured from the April session, UNITAR showed us how lowering energy consumption in carbon-emitting sectors will likely help promote specific targets for energy efficiency. Both SDGs 9 and 7 promote solutions to reduce CO2 emissions in industries and improve energy production and consumption. Now, to advance these goals, embedding the principles of these SDGs as we work to achieve SDG 4 will be very critical. And this is, of course, at the very heart of what we do as an affinity group and individually as organizations. Next, please. And next, we learned that the construction sector, as an example again, is one of the roots of the TVET graduates that are seeking jobs in the labor market. And this is one of those sectors that is also rapidly transitioning to become greener. TVET can contribute here since we can find many of the goals intersect in a green economy scenario. According to UNITAR, if we look at the SDGs as an integral policy agenda, there can be potential to minimize the trade-offs in achieving all SDGs. You may ask how so? Since there are different contexts and priorities that countries are prioritizing and are pursuing, the targets across SDGs are not always compatible with each other. This means an advancement in one of the goals will require a different appreciation or prioritization of another goal to minimize this trade-off. However, training for the green building sector can benefit the triple bottom line of sustainability, which includes the economy, by lowering the cost of renewable energy technology or boosting green jobs, for example. The environment, the second of the triple bottom line, is by improving biodiversity, and the society by promoting inclusion and access through green and inclusive building designs. So these are just some of those examples that we discussed during this session. Next, please. Now, the teaching about the SDGs and underlying principles is just as ambitious as the goal to achieve all of them. However, we as professionals pushing forward SDGs in TVET and as lifelong learners ourselves, we can count on the available learning resources, tools, platforms, and services that help us navigate through our own learning requirements to become better agents of SDG implementation. And the UN system continually develops these resources. As an example, UNITAR and UNSCC, which is the United Nations Systems Staff College, manage the UN SDG Learn. It is a platform. Next slide. Sorry, yeah, stay in this slide, please. It is a UN SDG learning platform, and it is a platform that serves as a gateway to access resources on SDGs. And most recently, UNITAR and UNESCO co-developed a recommendation service. This is now in implementation, and the service has been designed using UNESCO's 8 SDG competencies. And this is also using a mental model system of an SDG learner, which you can see as screenshots that we captured from our session. So what this service is all about is to help practitioners like us assess our own SDG competencies and receive a customized recommendation learning pathway. This recommendation gives a systematic guidance on where we are with our learning gaps, or what micro-learning solutions or modules could help strengthen our application of SDG principles in our day-to-day decision-making practice according to the mental model that we chose or the SDG closest to the work that we do. And this service is currently available. UNITAR invites us to visit the SDG Learn platform. You can see the URL in one of the slides. And it is a very worthwhile undertaking for us to expand our knowledge on SDG. Next slide, please. And lastly, I am pleased to introduce briefly UNESCO-UNEVOC, which is the specialized agency of UNESCO for TVET. And here at UNIVAC, we will continue to be an active collaborator of the SDG Affinity group to help create opportunities like this for increasing our SDG and TVET for climate action advocacy. And as mentioned by Judy and Jane earlier, we work with TVET institutions and national bodies like the CICAN, and the TAFE Directors Australia. Currently, there is over 220 UNIVAC centers in 149 countries, which are being coordinated by UNIVAC to advance SDG 4 and the linkages with other goals. We're also hoping to promote in a bigger way the transformation of TVET through the building of capacity and cooperation. And so we are very happy to be part of this initiative under the auspices of the World Federation of Colleges and Polytechnics and under the lead of the Colleges and Institutes Canada. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ken and Jane and Andre. We're really, you can see we're very excited by what we can offer, what we've been doing together, and we welcome you to join us. In the next moment, we're going to show you a short clip. This comes from the students of Kevin Holmes, that you heard him speak and be referred to in several of my colleagues' presentations. Kevin works at Algonquin College here in Ottawa, and a group of his students put together an SDG video. We will share the link again to the entire video, but I'll just ask Andrea to share the first 2 students because it's really inspiring.
United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are striving to make the world a better place by 2030. How is Algonquin College making this happen? Let's see.
It's life below water for me. Did you know that approximately every minute 1 million plastic drinking bottles are purchased around the world? Or that every year an estimated 6 to 12 million metric tons of plastic enter the ocean? The UN challenges us to eliminate our plastic usage as much as possible. When you choose to refill a reusable water bottle, you stop another bottle from entering the ocean, helping to protect our ocean's ecosystem and the animals that call it home.
It's the healthy coping mechanisms for me. Everyone has struggled with good health and well-being and needs support at one time or another. Whether you're concerned about your substance use or someone you care about, the AC Umbrella Project is creating a safer space on campus to discuss the impact of the use of alcohol and other drugs. If you drink or use drugs to cope with your feelings, there are many risk-free ways to manage those feelings, like physical activity, talking to a friend, binge watching Netflix, and so much more. If you are struggling to cope with the stresses associated with life, please connect with AC Counseling Services.
So again, we're thoroughly impressed with what students have been able to do. Et puis, j'oublie toujours de parler en français. Je remercie mes collègues qui l'ont fait. Bien sûr, on peut répondre à des questions dans les deux langues. Donc, si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas de les poser en anglais ou en français. I know we do have interpretation as well. So I'm assured that everybody has been able to follow along. And we are open to questions if you have any. I haven't seen anything in the chat so far or in the Q&A section, but if anyone that's listening does have a question, please put it in one of those two spots. We'd be happy to answer. If we could just move while we're waiting to the next slide, I'd like to just show you the list of webinars that we have done so that you can see the topics that we've covered so far in our first year. And we do invite you to consider registering so that we can make sure that you find out about future webinars that we are planning, and even to suggest those. And that will be helpful to all of you if you have specific things that you'd like to know more about. We also have another video that we're very proud that Colleges and Institutes Canada released earlier this year, and my colleague will put the link in the chat. I think she already has. That is a call to action to the post-secondary sector in Canada, and in particular to our sector, the college and institute sector, to sign the global SDG Accord. And this is something that we feel very strongly about as a signal to the world that we in Canada are committed and engaged as a post-secondary technical vocational education and training sector. We are committed to those SDGs. And then we have a growing community of practice of our members that are working on the Sustainable Development Goals that meet approximately once a month to share challenges, best practices, innovative ideas, and so on. I apologize if you're not hearing the translation. We will stick to English for the remaining minute, and certainly the recording, I believe, will be made available to everybody from this session, and we will be making available this PowerPoint deck as well with all the links in it. So hopefully you'll be able to access that as well, and you'll be able to follow up with us either through the WFCP link that we posted in the chat earlier, or by going to the websites of any of our institutions, and you'll be able to reach us that way as well. So I think we are at time now. We wanted to end right on time, and we would like to thank you again for having joined us, and hope that you found this session interesting and relevant, and we welcome you to connect with us. Thank you, Andrea. There's an email address you can use if you'd like to. If you email that address, I can put you in touch with any one of the speakers, both those that were here today and those that you saw on the various clips. So without any further ado, thank you. Merci. Miigwech.